Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Welcome to All Things Social Security. I am Stephanie Joy, the attorney at Joy Disability. Welcome to the channel, and I hope you enjoy the video. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Wanted to talk about something only because it just came up in some discussions with some teammate here. And it has to do with when you're, we think of the function report and the work history report as being very different, and they are, but you can really I've described in other ways how you can use your function report when you're preparing for hearing and all that stuff. Same is true of the work history report. It's something you want to be familiar with your answers on your work history report before you go to a hearing to make sure you remember everything correctly, because you could get asked about that past work. But another thing to think about in the work history report, the current one, so this has only been around, the last year or so, maybe it's going on two. It asks you at the end of every job two-pager, it asks you why you can't do that job, right? And that's your opportunity, obviously. And it's very important then you say why you can't do that job. And sometimes they don't give you a lot of space. So to me, that would actually be something I might finish off in the remarks. Normally I'm saying stay within the space, generally speaking, for most questions. This one might be a little bit different, only because it is such a tiny little spot. And I think what you can draw from, so you can remember what to think about in terms of what tasks are limited. If you do your function report before your work history report, it won't be a bad idea to look at your question 5 and question 20 and see those are the two questions on the function report that relate to work tasks. If you notice, everything else in the function report is lifestyle, things and tasks, not things that are necessarily done with regard to work. And my speculation is that the other questions, about personal care, meals, housework, hobbies, social activities, are there to test your consistency with what you say elsewhere, like under number 5 and number 20. So, if you say your hobby is taking long walks, 3-mile walks, but elsewhere you said, walking is painful, that might not seem, walking under number 5, I can't do this job because it required a lot of walking. Yet then they see in hobbies that like to go for long leisurely walks, slower, whatever, but the point is you choose to walk. That could be, I look at it as they are testing all of life domains to see if what you say in other areas of life are consistent with what you're talking about when it comes to work. And I know people get annoyed because they're like, oh, because I can do that once, that they're going to say I can, not necessarily, but it really depends. But anyway, going back to the work history report, I think it's best to have done your function report first, if possible. Now, if you're filing online, which probably you should be, they're going to want and if you only had one job in the relevant 5-year period, they're going to get basically your work history report right in the application. So you're going to be answering all the questions that are in the current 3369 in your online application. If you had more than one job, they ask you how many, I think they ask you what was your title and what kind of business was it, and then the start and end date, and that's it. None of the details, because they're good, because there's more than one, they're like, oh, we'll get that in a whole different report, the 3369, which comes, after, I think, basically after you get out of the field office and are tossed up to the medical workup office, aka the DDS. So this is what I do when I help people. if you look at the function report, question 5 and question 20, and look at those tasks that you say there are difficult. And those questions are more about doing any kind of work, as opposed to what you're doing now is answering with this particular job on the work history report. But I would be looking at, if you said you have poor concentration and on your function report, and you only mention your bad back and the reason why you can't do job number 2 or whatever, but you have a concentration of focus deprivation, maybe due to pain, which is not uncommon, or it could be, a mental health issue otherwise, it really depends. But I think that will really help you explain more thoroughly how you can't do that particular job and all the jobs that are in your work history report. Question 20 is the one that has all the lists of tasks. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4 lines or something like that. And those are all work-related tasks. So they are really important to think about. And I always say, I heard this before, don't not check it just because you can do it. Check it if you can't do it 8 hours a day. Check it if you can't do it as much as you used to be able to do it when you were 20. I love the age 20. So draw on those to make that answer better, because you're explaining what this is a step 4 answer. I mean, you have to prove that you can't do that job. So if you have a weak answer and why can't you do that job, and it doesn't even discuss all those problems, like the things that you said you had a problem with in the function report, you don't even mention as to why you can't do that job. And the reason why most people don't is because they just don't think about all those things. They think about the one big reason why they don't do that job anymore, or why they couldn't do that job anymore. And they don't get to all the little things that would also impede it, you know. Anyway, I think that is something you're going to want to do. Question 5, question 20. Again, basically the two questions in that whole function report that relate to work tasks. Everything else is that lifestyle stuff. And I think it's there to test your consistency and make sure they jive. So keep that in mind as you're doing both. But definitely for that last question on each job form, the 2 pages that each job gets in the work history report, think of 5 and 20, review your answers there, I would say, before you complete your answer. And I think you're going to find that there's more things that you're finding that affect it. Could be your hands, or, not the thing that made you quit, but if they limit the ability to do that job as well, maybe your hands have gotten worse. You know. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you because that came up and I thought, yeah, that should be almost like a set protocol in our standard operating procedure when we're assisting with, it's kind of shadowy in here, when we are assisting with function reports and eliciting more details from a client to make sure they're being thorough. I think that is a good SOP. When you're doing that question on the work history report, look at question 5 of the function report and question 20 of the function report, and think long and hard about each one and whether those tasks were implemented or implicated in that job. And if so, if they're limited on your function report, wouldn't they be limited with the job? Unless you only had to do it for 2 minutes on the job, in which case it probably wouldn't even be in the job description. But anyhow, just a little tip, something you can do to make that a little bit stronger, because that is your step 4 argument, really, why I can't do my prior work. And then, of course, they'd bring you to step 5. And when I talk about these steps, guys, I'm talking about the sequential evaluation process, not these steps when you're at the field office and they're saying, you're in step 4. Take a representative here 15 to 30 days. That's not the same steps. We don't know what those steps are in the field office. But in the medical workup office, in the DDS, it's the sequential evaluation process. I do have a video that actually a video that goes through all 5 steps, and then I have a video on each of the steps. And I think the playlist is sequential evaluation process. But that is probably something that we're going to make kind of an official standard operating procedure around here. We're probably doing it anyway, like in a more automatic, but not really thinking it as necessarily clinched in stone, 5 and 20. But now I think it should be, particularly, when you have new people that come on board and need to learn, you kind of better to have a set operating procedure. So anyway, I think you guys could use that too to help your answers be more reflective of the realities. Okay. Anyway, I hope you're all doing great. I'm holding my own here. But I'll see you soon. Hopefully I'll see you Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the live stream that comes out every week. And definitely, if you can, watch the 12 noon. Sometimes we're a little late posting them, but 12 noon daily reported, which this probably is coming out 12 o'clock someday. And yeah, it really helps the channel, and it helps the mission of the channel per se, specifically. It doesn't have anything to do with any of the other parts of the firm and clientele, but it definitely helps certain people that are the 1%/5%ers and all that. It's described in the mission someplace. It's been a while, but I know it's there someplace. So anyway, appreciate you guys, and definitely feel free to ask any question under any video that you have, even if it's not related to the video, but it's on the top of your mind about, an SS situation or question. I get to them all, not as fast as I used to. There's a lot more now, but I do get to them all within a number of days. And I will answer you if it's something answerable. If it's appropriate for a video, I'll do it in a video. And I will try to link it to where you asked it, so you have a copy before anybody else, because the priority is answering you. But then if I think it's something that would be useful to other people, it would be shared out. So, all right, guys, have a great night. It was good to see you all. Bye-bye.